If you want to learn about Islam and Muslims, stay tuned to Salam Radio 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum for the Body, Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. It's so wonderful to be back. I was really looking forward to this show, not least because I have such a wonderful guest on my show, but I feel refreshed. And I tell you why I feel refreshed. I went out on a short break to Croatia on a Wednesday evening, and I only just got back today. So it's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure to speak to all of you and also bring you what's pertinent in the news of either healthcare or related topics. And I do like to talk about topics that are either not spoken about very often or where we have a little bit of, let's say, shyness about certain issues. And I feel that it's really important to speak openly about issues that affect our community. So for those of you who have just tuned in, welcome. I'm Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum. I'm a GP who works here in Peterborough. And on this occasion, I'm going to give a shout out to my fabulous colleagues who work at Bretton Park Healthcare. They're a wonderful practice. And nowadays, GPs get a lot of stick, don't they, for things like GP accessibility or that people can't get an appointment. And that's a recognisable challenge. It really is. And trust me, these wonderful, wonderful colleagues of mine are kind. They work well together. I felt so welcome since I've started working that I thought that it was really important that I give them a shout out. So I'd like you to put your hands together and a round of applause for them as well, because they work really hard. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to where we're airing our show. So we are on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Twitch. And I'd love you to join in our conversation. So do call us on 01733 602 133, or you can text us on WhatsApp on the number 074 11 1062. Now, without further ado, I have got a wonderful, wonderful lady with me today. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about our guest, who's called Amanda Geraghty, who likes to be called Mandy. And in my other role as a counsellor, keeping it non-political, I came across Mandy through a colleague of mine, Councillor Katie Cole, who we have been talking and remembering fondly today, because we wanted to bring about awareness of a very sensitive issue of domestic violence in women. And it's an issue that really isn't spoken very much about or highlighted very much, especially within the Asian community. And what better platform than to speak about such issues than Salam Radio? It's important that we raise awareness. It's important that we talk about these contentious issues and those that have stigma attached to it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mandy Geraghty. Mandy, welcome to the Salam Radio programme. It's lovely to have you.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you.
It's great. So, starting off, Mandy, Peterborough Women's Aid, as you're the CEO of it. I remember when I first came into Peterborough a couple of years ago, we had quite a lot that was going on. I'd done radio at the time as well, and I remember coming across patients within my line of work as a GP, and I remember that Peterborough Women's Aid itself, I mean, you're doing so much work now, because I know that we've met with you both, Katie, other counsellors, and I have, and there wasn't very much known about it. Give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and your work in this area. What made you passionate about this particular topic?
Yeah, so before we start, I just want to say that we know that 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic abuse in their lifetime. So it really might touch the heart of a lot of listeners. So if they need support, please do contact Peterborough Women's Aid on the website or on the advice line. So I've been working in the sector for over 20 years. I began working for the probation service, and I facilitated domestic abuse groups for perpetrators. So I worked in the community. I also worked in prison with men that had killed their partners, looking at rehabilitation, looking at how they would act in relationships when they got released, and help contribute to things like parole boards and sentence planning. And I stayed at the probation service for 14 years. I kind of moved into various roles. I started working with victims as well as perpetrators, and I left probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And at that point, I was deputy director in Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire. And I kind of took the plunge and thought my heart is working with victims of violence against women and girls. And I joined Refuge, the national organisation. And I managed services in Cambridgeshire, where we ran 2 refuges. And then I moved into London and ran lots of specialist services for minority communities. And then this job came up as a CEO at Peterborough Women's Aid, a local place for me, somewhere I know, somewhere I'm just super passionate about supporting people from the local community. So here I am.
And it's wonderful to have you. The world is a better place with people like you, Mandy.
Thank
I just
you.
want to say that. And also, I just, like, going back, I think a couple of years ago we'd heard that funding had been pulled to have actually a Peterborough Women's Aid located here. Did you find it challenging to I think it's a blessing that it was advertised, wasn't it? But did you find it challenging to set up again?
We did. So when I started here a year ago, and we had quite a small service. So we run a refuge in Peterborough, and at that point we had quite a small outreach service, and unfortunately we were unsuccessful in securing that contract. But we bounced back really quickly, and we thought, okay, we didn't get that contract, but what we really want to do is we want to look at the needs of the Peterborough community. And that's where we are now. So we've got lots of specialist projects that are kind of tailored to what Peterborough needs. And with regard to running services, funding is always an issue. So charities like ours, there's never any really long-term funding. We get a grant for maybe 2 years and we can do something. So yeah, it's always really challenging.
That's the issue about funding for a lot of charities. I think that we don't value the third sector enough when it comes to their contribution in certain areas. And actually, it almost becomes such a chore because you're working so hard to access the resources, to direct those resources to the people that need them the most, or based on what you want to deliver. And you're having to go through reams and reams and reams of risk assessment, paperwork and things like that. And that takes up a majority of the time as well, isn't it? I wish it wasn't so arduous for you. So hats off to you and all the other third sector organisations that are lucky enough to benefit from such funding. Now, I'm going to take you back to the introduction, the beginning. I found it really interesting that you started off by working with perpetrators. Very challenging. And I think that it's important, obviously, and I've said this when we advertised the show, that it's a sensitive topic for many people. And obviously those that will be listening may be affected by what we're going to be talking about tonight. So how was that, working with perpetrators? Did you see any sentiments of remorse, or were there varying levels of responses? Did you ever feel at risk?
I actually felt safer when I was in the prison, for obvious reasons, I suppose, where you're very, very secure working in the prison. But I think the reason I started working for perpetrators is because I personally hold a fundamental belief that people can change if they want to change, and I think it's about unpicking the reasons why people behave in the way they do. And from the probably hundreds of men that I worked with, there were some men that felt absolutely no remorse. And I remember working with one man who was in prison for killing his wife, and he was coming up to being released, and he didn't get released because he was still taking no responsibility. He was still adamant that because she had had an affair, he was fully justified in doing what he did. And that could be really disheartening. I think I worked with him for like a year, and we didn't make any progress. But again, maybe that time will come. Maybe that time will come where he'll be ready to go through the rehabilitation programme. But there were also other men that I worked with who I really did feel were remorseful. And we can never excuse violence or aggression towards women, But by unpicking someone's background, you can look at their values, look at their belief systems, and you can start to challenge those. And if you do that, that can ensure that maybe they won't behave in that way again.
Sure, and I think that it's really quite interesting that you've shared with us that there were some that had no remorse. In your experience, have you felt or did you feel ever that these perpetrators influence via whatever their cultural background was or religious background may have played a role in their lack of remorse as well? Or?
That's a really tricky one because when we look at perpetrators of domestic abuse, we look at minimising, denying and blaming their offence. And a lot of the time we worked with men who would say, well, it's my religion, women should be told what to do, they should be kept in the house, they should give me children, I can have multiple wives. And they would use that as an excuse for their behaviour. Again, things like with alcohol, well, I only hit her when I was drunk. But again, if you look at the reasons why, it is their belief system and their values, and it's kind of hiding behind cultural reasons, it's hiding behind religion, just to excuse their behaviour. So my kind of personal belief is that nothing can excuse being abusive, and that the men that I work with definitely try to hide that.
I think you've put it so eloquently, Mandy, and I'm so grateful that we have this show, because being an Islamic radio station, it's important that we highlight what is wrong, what is unacceptable, so that we have a lot of Muslim women who will be listening to this and will know for a fact that faith in no way teaches that men can get away with harming a woman. So if you are listening to this and you're affected by anything that we've said today, there is absolutely no excuse to be subjected to any form of abuse, verbally or physically, psychologically, financially or otherwise, and be told that you have to put up with this if somebody is using faith as an excuse, and likewise if they're under the influence of a narcotic or alcohol too. So we hope that those of you that are listening to this have registered what Mandy has said. And we can obviously share the Peterborough Women's Aid number and how to access your services. But how does it work in the service? Where are you based? What do you do? Obviously, I'm just mindful that giving the location as well is something that I don't want to do, because I learnt that from meeting you. So I'm being good. But how can they access your service?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. A lot of people, when I say I work for Peterborough Women's Aid and what do you do? Oh, I run a refuge. And they say, well, where is it? And I say, well, I can't tell you, can I? So our refuge is extremely confidential.
Sure.
We do have space for eight families there, so 8 women, and I think up to 23 children, and we're always full.
Yeah.
But in the community, you can access our services in a number of ways. So we have our website where you can just send an email and we'll get back to you. And we have a commitment to get back to people within 48 hours. We also have a live web chat facility. So there is a worker on the end of the laptop or whatever, ready to respond to anything on web chat, so we can advise that way. And we find that a lot of people who are in abusive relationships feel much safer because that web chat can be anonymous.
Yeah.
And then we also have our advice line, so anyone can ring up and get advice. It doesn't have to be a woman who is a victim of abuse. It can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a professional, and we will give advice to that person about kind of next steps and how we can support.
That's wonderful. What are your timings for the lines being open?
So our advice line is open 9 until 4:30, Monday to Friday. And we always, if we are supporting women and we're not available, we always signpost them to the National Domestic Abuse Helpline in case of an emergency, who can then make sure they're safe out of hours.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of adverts around sort of special gestures made with the hands if a woman feels she's not safe. Would you like to talk our listeners through some of those sort of gestures? Well, I think there was something like, off the top of my head, sort of, I don't know if it was a forefinger gesture or something like that, but in terms of the different projects that you do, Would you like to talk to us a little bit about the various things you do? Because you've spoken to us about them, which has been wonderful. But it'd be nice for our listeners to talk a little bit about the projects.
Yes, so I'm going to save our specialist South Asian victim project till last.
Yeah.
But we do run a number of specialist projects. So we run a Lithuanian project. And this is vitally important for Peterborough because we know that unfortunately a number of Lithuanian women in Peterborough have been killed by a partner or former partner.
Correct.
And the reason why Lithuanian women haven't been able to access help is because there are no support services out there that speak Lithuanian or have an understanding of the Lithuanian culture. So we have a Lithuanian speaking worker and people can access support from that worker in all the ways that I've described. We also run a group for women in Peterborough, a really successful group, and it's about peer support, empowering, self-esteem. Sometimes we just have a cup of tea and a biscuit. And that is held at Park Road Baptist Church on a Tuesday morning at 10:30, and that is open to any woman. Sometimes we have, keep fit, we have healthy eating, arts and crafts, and really that's come from the back of COVID, where we found that a lot of, especially younger women with younger children, felt really isolated, and everywhere that they go for support, they couldn't bring their young children, whereas our group, like everyone is welcome.
Oh, that's great.
So we have that project. We also have, in my years of working with female victims, I often get asked, what about men? So we know that 95% of domestic abuse, the women are victims, but there's still that 5%. So at Peterborough Women's Aid, we're really conscious that we support anyone that's a victim, male or female. And so recently we launched our Be United project. And this is a project supporting male victims of domestic abuse, whether the perpetrator is male or female. And we have a specialist worker doing that role. And also we're going to be raising awareness within the Peterborough community about male victims of domestic abuse and the reasons that maybe males won't come forward. And a lot of that is to do with shame and embarrassment and not being believed.
It's really quite interesting that we've brought this topic up about men. And I do have to put my hands up. In the beginning, when I referred to women receiving support from Peterborough Women's Aid, I deliberately left men out, thinking that actually this was a service only for women, and you've already answered that question for me. And it's so wonderful to see that you can support men as well, because it's something that really does not get heard about or doesn't come to the surface. And there are lots of experiences of domestic violence in men in ethnic minority communities that I come across in my line of work. For example, I'll see a patient, for example, who has newly come to the country via marriage. And one of the common scenarios that I have seen within my years of experience as a GP is that we have men who live within the fold of a combined family system, can sometimes feel oppressed or directed what to do, and have to work upon the directions, and obviously all their earnings are given back to the family, and they're sort of held to ransom by saying, well, we brought you to England and you will do as I say. That doesn't happen the majority of the time. However, in those isolated experiences, and I've seen very, very few, I have to add, so it's not a generalising comment, but in the cases that I have seen, it has occurred to me that those cases around men are very real and they are very significant. However, the support, especially for those that have English as a second language, is far and few between. So organisations that support men, I can't just signpost them to a generic line or a helpline. So it's good to see that's great that you have men that are supported. Yeah,
we're really, really pleased, because a lot of the support out there for male victims is just national support. There's nothing local. So this is it's a new experience for us, but since launching the project we've had quite a few referrals come forward, and we're going to be working with people like Peterborough United, the rugby club, the hockey club, just to raise awareness and just for men to know that there is support out there for them.
That's fabulous, Mandy. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if you have joined us on the Body, Health and Mind show with myself and Mandy Jarrett, who's the CEO of Peterborough Women's Aid, thank you for joining us. And we've got some comments. So I have a Sabila Murad who has said, religion should never be used as an excuse for domestic violence. You're absolutely right, Sabila, especially when it is cultural and use religion as the excuse. So there, I think what Sabila is saying, that there are differences between cultural practices and religious practices, which is so true. And often perpetrators will intertwine faith and conflate faith with what is deemed to be culture, and both aren't right, you see. So it's very important that that point is made. And I do have a regular on my show called David, and David sends me jokes. So we're going to go a little bit off topic if we may, but he just really does write some hollers. So I'm really happy, David, that you're here. I hope you were seeing my photos of sunny Croatia. So he's written, I went back to my GP. He writes me these jokes. I went back to my GP and said, that hemorrhoid cream you gave me caused a very nasty reaction. He said, where did you apply it? I said, on the bus. So thank you very much. I've actually read that one of yours, David. So that's wonderful. Come on, you need to come up with some newer ones. And we've also got, again, a comment by Sabila. Thank you so much, Sabila. I'm really, really happy that you're taking an interest in this show. And it's wonderful. Do share it on your timeline as well. That would be wonderful. So Sabila says, it is the cultural norm in the South Asian community for domestic abuse to be okay, but it shouldn't be. Like Shabina Asad Qayyum said, there is no justification for domestic abuse. Well, we are right with you on that opinion, Sabila. And I think that it's really important that we speak about it and actually create awareness. So having this as a platform, Salam Radio, is hopefully going to be a turning point to show women and men that they don't have to put up with it at all. So what I've often seen, Mandy, in my these are some of the challenges that I sometimes see in primary care, that we will get somebody is subjected to a form of domestic violence, for example, and police are contacted. They issue a dash report and it is brought to the attention of the GP and we have a look at it. It's obviously a very lengthy document. But then such women, I don't feel there's much in the way of follow up unless they take those steps to report. I sometimes find that some women are then still at risk of danger. What would your advice be to such women who experience it, have gone to the police and obviously then are sent back home to the same house in the same premises? Because often a lot of them will get in touch with GPs like myself and then it almost seems as if you're starting it again. You're feeding into them that, yes, if you're in immediate danger, call the police, etc. in an emergency situation. So it would be good to have that information at hand here.
So I think it is all too common where women will phone the police. There's been an incident of abuse. A lot of the time it's a lack of evidence is why that it isn't progressed into a crime, and then the perpetrator and the victim end up in the same home. But it's important as a victim of domestic abuse, you understand your rights or what you're entitled to. So I always say to victims, if you have called the police and the police arrive, you must ensure, and the police have a duty to do this, that they interview you separately from the perpetrator. Their duty of care is to separate you both so you can give a full account of what is happening. And at that point, you can say, I don't feel safe here. I want to leave. Make sure the police have their cameras on. That's important because when it comes to giving evidence in court, reading off a statement is a lot less powerful than actually seeing someone's fear. So it's important to say to the police, turn your camera on, and they should do that anyway. At that point, in a situation, the police do have a number of options. So they could ask for a DVPO. So that is a domestic violence protection order, and that immediately takes the perpetrator out of the house for 28 days, and it gives the victim some respite.
Yeah.
Able to make decisions. Are they going to stay? Can they go and live with family? Do they want to go to a refuge? Can they get a non-molestation order to make sure he can't contact her again? So that gives some respite. What we do know is that doesn't always happen, but what I really want your listeners to know is that is an option for them. So I think there's kind of, some people think that if you are in an abusive relationship, so if you're living with the perpetrator, you're not entitled to any support. And that's not the case. So at Peterborough Women's Aid, if you are in your relationship and you feel unable to leave, or you don't want to leave for various reasons, we will support you no matter what situation you're in.
Wonderful. We will continue that, Mandy, just after the break. So stay tuned,
Stay
everyone.
tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Craving authentic Desi flavors? Look no further than Desi Restaurant. From midday until 1 in the morning, enjoy our homemade specialties that will transport your taste buds. Indulge in tantalizing papri chaat and savor the rich Chersi Kadahi. Treat your friends to our fresh 1 kilogram Chersi lamb handi. Plus, get 2 12-inch pizzas for $11.95. Located at 298 Lincoln Road, we deliver from lunchtime until 1 a.m. Call 01733 555 795 now to order and experience Desi Restaurant's flavors.
Mar food store Lincoln Road Triangle te inno rush o balle hoy tusa ni amba ne pure mulke vich rolle
पाकिस्तानी सौगातां जी अंब ले लो जामनू ले लो पाकिस्तानी ताजे मिठे अंब ते जामनू आ गए जी
ਯਕੀਨ ਕਰੋ ਜੀ ਭਾਈ ਨਾ ਮਾਰ ਫੂਡ ਸਟੋਰ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਵਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਡ ਦਾ ਅੰਬ ਮੰਗਵਾ ਕੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਯੂਕੇ ਨੂੰ ਨਸ਼ ਲਵਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਪਾਕਿस्तानी ਜਾਮਨੂ ਵੀ ਭਾਈ ਉਹ ਜਨੇ ਨੇ ਆ ਪੁੱਤਰ
Amar Food Stores Al Mashu Fresh Halal Meat and Groceries Address 613B Lincoln Road Triangle Peterborough Telephone 01733 687374 Amar Food Stores Meyar ka naam Munasib Daam.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings. Whether it is maths, English, science or 11 plus, Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website mastermindstuitionacademy.com or call us on 07516 166003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
Thinking of laser hair removal but worried about cost? Well Skin Clinic, Peterborough's #1 aesthetic clinic, offers 0% finance on courses of laser hair removal. We perform thousands of treatments using the Soprano titanium in our prestigious clinic. Virtually pain-free and suitable for all skin types, our team of aesthetic professionals can help you achieve your goals affordably. Well Skin Clinic, making life-changing aesthetic treatments affordable for all. 40 Cowgate, Peterborough. Call or WhatsApp us on 01733 555540. Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our restaurant at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
At Master's Pharmacy, we put your health and convenience first. We offer free blood pressure checks and blister-packed medication. With our free same-day prescription delivery service, you can have your medication when you need it. We also offer travel vaccinations, including Hajj and Umrah, along with other services to meet all your pharmacy needs. For more information, contact Master's Pharmacy on 01733 567 208 or visit us at 303 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PH.
You could be driving, you might be cooking, You could even be working. But whatever you're doing, you're also listening to Salam Radio. And if you're in business, you're
Find us on Facebook at Salam Radio.
So talk to them and let them know.
سورة قاف بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Well, welcome back. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Body, Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And we were in the real throes of conversation, passionate conversation about this issue that we want to talk about with reference to domestic violence. And I know, Mandy, would you like to conclude? Because I know that just before the break, we were talking a little bit about how sort of, you know, if a person is approached, we were talking about the police. If the police go into a property, it's important to ask the police to put their cameras on, etc., because that will be used as evidence in a court. Facial expressions, what you look at as opposed to what you read, is very important.
Just to conclude, I wanted to make clear that services such as ours, Peterborough Women's Aid, if you are in an abusive relationship and you don't intend to leave, you can still access our support. So we can support you in a number of ways with safety planning, with emotional support. If you're struggling to leave a house, you know, we can bring you food and stuff like this. So what we're saying is that maybe we know that some women aren't in the right place to go to the police or go through a court process, but that doesn't mean you're not entitled to support. And we can support you in any way. We are completely needs-led by the women that we support.
It's fabulous. And it's so refreshing to hear all of this. Sometimes you do feel stuck. As a professional, sometimes I feel stuck, you know, when I've had women in the past, and I think we spoke about this when we met, but I've had women in the past that sort of have come to me and said, I cannot leave. He's outside and I cannot leave. You are going to have to help me here and now. And that's when, my goodness, the blood pressure rises, the heart rate increases, and I think, my goodness, I have to keep this lady safe. And I can't tell you how invaluable what you're saying is, because we've got so many people that are engaging in the show, and I'm going to read out a couple of more questions, well, actually comments. So Jason McNally, such an important issue within our city. Well done, ladies, for highlighting this subject. And then we've got Sam Naid. Well done, Mandy. Much needed. All the way with you on this path, which is wonderful. See how valued you are? And it's wonderful that you bring this to this city, especially for men and for women as well. Now, that was the Be United project that we were talking about. And before that, we spoke about the
Lithuanian project.
Yes.
We spoke about Women Warriors, our group on a Tuesday. And we also actually work in HMP Peterborough.
Yes.
With women. We know that 80% of women in Peterborough prison have been victims of abuse or sexual violence. So we do awareness sessions, and we look at kind of their plan when they get released. And just really, we talk about things like getting access to Clare's Law or Sarah's Law, just to make sure that women who, yes, they are offenders, but again, we unpick. And a lot of the reason why the women in Peterborough Prison are offenders is because they've been made to commit crimes because they're in an abusive relationship.
Wow, vulnerability speaking volumes there. Would you like to remind our listeners a little bit around Clare's Law and Sarah's Law as well? Would that be okay?
So Clare's Law gives any woman that is entering into a new relationship and she feels vulnerable or she feels at risk, it gives her the opportunity to be able to apply online to get background criminal history on the man that she is entering into that relationship with.
Wow.
And it won't be all criminal history, it would just be related to domestic abuse. And this came from, unfortunately, a woman that was murdered by her partner. And her parents found out that actually he had a very violent history of violence towards women and girls.
Wow.
And they felt that if their daughter, Claire, had known about that, she wouldn't have entered into that relationship. And it's very similar with Sarah's Law. So Sarah's Law was introduced off the back of the sexual assaults and murder of Sarah Payne.
Yeah.
And again, it's applying to the police to see if a potential partner has any history of sexual offences.
Isn't it really sad, Mandy, though? And I'm sure that our listeners will also be in agreement that isn't it sad that such laws come about after the unfortunate incident that involves the loss of life or perhaps, something. And it's the loved ones who are left to suffer behind and campaign. Some of them campaign under incredibly challenging circumstances and they fight to the hilt to get their voice heard. But what they are doing as well is incredibly empowering. That is to leave a lasting legacy of their loved ones that have unfortunately succumbed to this violence so that it never happens to anybody else again. And actually that's what you're doing as well. The work that all of you are doing is to make sure that nobody has a voice that is not heard. And actually I did have a question. Somebody questioned me in person to say that if the individual doesn't have access to a phone or cannot dial a number, is there any other way that they can contact you? I know you mentioned the chat as well.
So we have there's a web. So on our website, you can chat with us on web chat. What we do encourage, and you'll probably be able to relate to this, is that routine appointments are a very good way of us being able to communicate with women that maybe are so isolated that they don't have a phone or they don't have access to the internet. So, for example, going to a doctor's appointment, midwife, health visitor appointment, at that point, if you can talk to that professional, we can actually meet you there at that appointment.
Wow.
Because we appreciate that some perpetrators are so controlling that they will accompany you everywhere, food shopping, clothes shopping, school runs, and sometimes for women the only space they get when they are on their own can be a health appointment. So that is kind of a strategy we have, that we can attend those appointments and be sat there in the doctor's room, waiting for you to come in, and then we can look at the support that we can offer.
That's a good idea, isn't it? For somebody to be able to see you when they go to a routine appointment. And is that the same for women who have English as a second language? So women in the Asian community, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So we I know you're gonna ask me about our new project in Peterborough. I look at supporting members of the South Asian community, but yes, we do, because we now have staff that speak multiple languages, so language shouldn't be a barrier.
This is great, and that's what I'm going to ask you about your Dahlia project. I am. So what gave birth to the Dahlia project? What was the ethos behind it? What spurred you on?
So before I start talking about the Dahlia project, Dr Shabina, I just want to say I'm very conscious that I am a white woman with white privilege, on Salam Radio, talking about a project for South Asian women. And I have absolutely no understanding of the barriers that South Asian women face when accessing support. I've never been racially attacked. I've never been in fear of, finishing a marriage and the violence that might happen. So I just want to say, when I'm talking about this, I am absolutely no expert, and I haven't lived in the shoes of the victims we're going to support. And as I talk about this more, you'll see how this is going to work for Peterborough Women's Aid. So this project kind of came off the back of a lecture I went to by Dr Myrna Guha, who is a researcher and lecturer at Anglia Ruskin University. And she studied the journey for South Asian women who are victims of domestic abuse. So she analysed 530 police records involving women from Asian origin, Pakistan, Bangladesh and India mostly. And Peterborough, unfortunately, came out with the worst data. So out of looking at crimes of domestic abuse, out of 193 crimes with violence without injury, 135 of those were in Peterborough. So we're talking about Cambridgeshire.
Wow.
Out of 87 stalking and harassment cases, 61 were Peterborough. 60 violence with injury, 42 were Peterborough. And 23 criminal damage, 19 were Peterborough.
Oh my goodness.
So really identifying that there's a huge issue around South Asian victims in Peterborough, suffering. So there was a quote in her research from a British Pakistani survivor, And she was very disappointed with how she was treated by agencies. And she said things like, the police come and take a statement. About a month or two later, they come back and say that we need more evidence. They said that, they felt very judged by the support services out there. No one could relate to them because there was no one working there from a South Asian background. So I went to this lecture. I'm passionate about supporting women and girls regardless of religion, culture, race, and I spoke to Dr Myrna and I said, wouldn't it be great if we could do something here? And then the Home Office released some funding. So we went for it. We put an application together. We evidenced the reasons why we want to start the project, and we were successful. So we now have the Dahlia project. We launched on July the 10th, and this is a project solely focusing around supporting female victims of abuse in Peterborough. And like I said earlier, I'm not leading this project. So the project is being led by Dr Darshana Schreider, who is one of our trustees. And we also have a steering group of Asian women in the community members and professionals. And we have 2 community workers, both from the South Asian community, who speak multiple languages. And the role of the project is to be able to go into the Asian community and say to women, we can support you, but not only can we support you, we get you. And that is the most important thing, is that we understand all of the barriers that you face and we can still support you. So we've got this contract for 2 years, and we can do a number of things to support women in Peterborough. So we've got some money for women who have no recourse to public funds. That can be a huge barrier for accessing support. We can offer support in court. We can offer safety planning, or we can just offer emotional support, because we know a lot of women from the South Asian community will never leave that relationship, and that's fine, that's their choice, but they might need an outlet. They might want somebody to talk to about what is going on in their lives. So we're super excited, and we looked at the reasons why women might withdraw from a criminal case when you're from the Asian community, and there were lots of reasons. So things like family pressure, fear of consequences for the perpetrator, which we found really interesting. So what might the consequences be within the community if a man is kind of shamed as being the perpetrator? So that was a fear for the woman as to why not to report it.
Yeah.
The perpetrators having full financial control, the honour of the family. Honour was a word that was talked about a lot. Punishment by the family, and also risk of honour-based abuse. So the top reasons why women didn't pursue a criminal case.
That makes things so complex, doesn't it? And also highlights the vulnerability, the accentuated vulnerability of women from the South Asian community. And it's wonderful that you bring or highlight these vulnerabilities, because my heart sank when you were reading those out, because I can imagine the level of helplessness that is just so profound in a woman that might not be able to speak English, who doesn't have anywhere to go because she has no finances. And honestly, Mandy, I've seen in my own practice where I have come across a few women who live within combined family systems and have such an element of control over their lives that it is difficult for them to escape the level of abuse that they are experiencing. But then again, the repercussions out of fear that she would face. So she continues to lead a life of subdued silence. That's horrific. It really is. It's just horrific. And anybody listening to this who feels that there is any reason or justification to say that it is a matter of honour, or people should not be talking about it for fear of sort of revolutionising. That's often women like myself from the South Asian community get accused of, and I've seen this quite a lot, oh, she's going to go and teach women what their rights are. And I want to be able to say this openly, because if I don't say it as a woman from the Asian community, people will continue. It is wrong. We have absolutely every right to make women feel empowered, independent, look after their children and their families in a safe, protected and loved manner. That is a fundamental, basic human right for everybody to feel safe and loved in the environment that they're in. And it's not too much of an ask, is it?
No.
Thank you for saying and talking to me about that. This has, in a way, evoked an emotion, I must say. And I just want to say it's so wonderful that we're having men participate in this conversation as well. And I'm going to read out one comment from Anne Sturgess. He says, "Well done, Mandy. Your knowledge is invaluable. It's great to see such passion to help support victim survivors of abuse." And I've got a Mr. Munir Ahmed, who is wonderful. He's just a great human being. And he listens to us all the way from the north of England, so from Leeds, will you believe it or not. And he's saying, "Salam, Dr. Shabina, wa alaikum as-salam." It's the knowledge women need, because most of them don't know what is available for them. They need the support and knowledge. And such organisation like yours, Mandy, are so valuable for the community. Excellent project. I'm so pleased. And this is Mr. Munir Ahmed. And we need more men like you, because as women, we are more powerful when we have men on our side that recognise and value women. I just want to say, Munir, you are one of them. So thank you so much for that.
I'm really, really chuffed that, like you say, men are commenting on this, because without the perpetrators, there's no abuse.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. But I also wanted just to talk about the Dahlia project in terms of where we as an organisation feel this is going.
Yeah.
Because there are very, very few, well, actually there's no specialist projects in the east of England focusing on South Asian victims. You go to London, there's quite a few. You go to the big cities, there's quite a few. And what we want to do with this is that we are committed. We're going to start a regional network. And we are going to share the learning from the Dahlia project, and we are going to empower other domestic abuse agencies to think about running similar projects like this as well. And we're hoping to be able to launch this project in Parliament as well. So we're really passionate that this isn't just about Peterborough, even though that is our focus, that we actually want to expand and we want to raise this awareness nationally of the issues that South Asian women have. It's, you know, as I've said before, I'm a white British woman, and some of the research I've read off the back of doing this project is it shouldn't be tolerated, regardless of who you are, what you look like. And we need to get the messages out there. And he's absolutely right in what we say. Women need to know that we are there for them, and that we can support them. They are absolutely not alone.
Yeah, and it's so great that you say this. And again, it's talking about replicating it, is sharing good practice. So we see something good happening for it. We see that there is a good uptake. I'm assuming, is there a good uptake? Are you having people that are coming through your doors, or what are the barriers that you're facing with the project sort of locally? Is there anything we can do to help through this platform?
So we launched the project officially in Peterborough on July the 10th, and we have had more than half of the numbers of referrals we were targeted for in a year.
Wow.
So in 1 month,
oh my God,
we've had half the referrals that we hope to have in a year.
Wow.
So there is a huge need out there in Peterborough. In terms of what we're trying to do at the moment, we're trying to network. So we're trying to, come on radio shows like this. We're trying to promote what we're doing. And we're slowly making connections with all the community groups in Peterborough. So I would say to any listeners, if you are a member of a community group in Peterborough, or if you just want us to come to, maybe you have a coffee morning, if you want one of our workers to come and talk about what we do, please get in touch via our website.
That would be wonderful. And the other thing I'd like to say, which is great, that some of our directors here are affiliated with the local mosques. And our mosque here in Peterborough, I'm really happy to say, are quite progressive, forward-thinking. And I've got good relationships with them. It might be a good idea, if you'd like a platform within a mosque, to be able to talk to some of those directors, so we can link you in through the radio as well to them, the Joint Mosque Council as well?
I think that would be really valuable, because what we are finding with the women that we're supporting is this total confusion sometimes, where the perpetrator has said, it's God's will, or you need to do this, you need to do, and they're confused because of their faith. And they're saying, but I am acting in all the ways that I should be acting, and you're still doing this to me. And that is really, really challenging. So I think any support from a mosque would be really valuable.
That's wonderful, and it's good that we can say that as well. We've had some more uptake with comments as well. So Munir says you should hold surgeries in different areas and let the women know about this. So yep, community surgeries in community areas as well. I sometimes do a counsellor surgery, so if you think that working alongside like-minded counsellors could be helpful, that could be something as well. And we have Brother Saeed, who is as tagged in Helen Walkinshaw as well, of Community First. Great to see you, Helen. Great to see that community organisations come together and do the great work that you're doing. As we know, Community First does a lot of great work in the community. Thank you so much. And Munir, again, go on events and places where the communities go. So yes, we've got lots of ideas, and all coming through from these wonderful men in our community who care about the women, which is great. And Jason, Munir Ahmed, great ideas. So we've got so much excitement that's going, for us over here. And this is what it's all about. The thing I absolutely love about Peterborough is that whilst we're such a hugely diverse community, and you recognise that as well, I'm quite humbled, Mandy, that you also recognise the fact that there are certain issues to be tackled with that are quite unique to each community. And it's interesting because I sit on the Equality, Diversity, Disability and Inclusion group, and it was quite interesting to see that the population of Eastern Europeans, such as Lithuanians, is growing larger and larger by the day. We have more Lithuanians than we do Pakistanis, British Pakistanis within the city now, which was very interesting. But these two communities form the largest part of the population here in Peterborough after white British. So the issues that come with those communities are obviously going to be quite large as well. But these shows are like, I think, breaking the stigma down as well, isn't it? To be able to talk openly and frequently. And I'd like to say on the back of that if anyone is watching the show tonight and they feel that they'd like to get in touch, even they'd like to be signposted to Peterborough Women's Aid, and you want to inbox me separately or the radio, please rest assured that your confidentiality won't be breached and your details will be kept confidential as well. So do put an inbox message in if you feel that you're at risk in particular and feel that you would want to reach out or need help. I have Sabila again. What about liaising with Peterborough Women's Association to raise awareness of the Dahlia Project and the other work Peterborough Women's Aid do? Such a fabulous idea, Sabila. And actually, in the break, I've shared the video of this. I've shared the live stream of the show to Peterborough Women's Association because they certainly do some fabulous work networking with everybody.
We have, and we are in touch with Peterborough Women's Association.
Oh, that's fabulous.
We are holding fire a little bit because we're actually going to launch a separate Facebook page for the Dahlia Project.
Oh, wonderful.
And that is going to be advertising all the places in the community where we are, and it's going to be offering this specialist support to South Asian women. And on that channel, there will also be all the work that we do in multiple languages. So we're in the process of recording YouTube videos in all the different languages so people can... It's fully accessible because we're very aware that at the moment most things that we write on our Peterborough Women's Aid Facebook page is in English.
Yeah.
So we want to have a platform where we can write things and record things in multiple languages, make sure that it's accessible for everybody. And we're going to be launching that hopefully on Monday. And then we will link in with all the different groups that are on Facebook, definitely Peterborough Women's Association.
Oh, fabulous. Well, doing some absolutely excellent work. And in the last 2 minutes, and we've got messages and comments popping up. So leaflets or posters in doctor surgery, says Munir. I will champion Peterborough Women's Aid all the way, says Jason. If you get funding, social media is the best as well. Wonderful. Sabila, sounds promising. Big smiley face. What a fantastic show it's been. In the last 2 minutes, is there anything, Mandy? The show is yours. What would you like to say?
I would like to say that Peterborough Women's Aid are totally committed to supporting any victim of domestic abuse, and we are accessible in all the different ways that I've described tonight. And some people that are listening might not realise that they are in an abusive relationship, and I would urge them to think about how comfortable they feel in their relationship. And this is what this is about. Men have different roles to women, but it's when that line is crossed and when you don't feel comfortable with something that you're being asked to do, because once you're being asked to do that, potentially you're going to be told and then you're going to be forced. So think about your own relationships and you will have that uneasy feeling. You will know if there is something wrong. Look on our website where you can find out about the different forms of domestic abuse. And we haven't touched that much on that tonight. That might be a different show. But please do reach out and know that we will support you in any way that we can.
Thank you, Mandy. And that is the